Hi everyone, welcome to RBCM at Home. My name is Kim Goff and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. I'm coming to you today from my home in Victoria, which is located on the territories of the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations, the Lekwungen speaking people here on Vancouver Island. In Victoria, British Columbia, Vancouver Island, I'll get that correct. During this pandemic period, it is felt at times that everything is upside down, but we do our best to cobble together some semblance of normal, and we try to lean into the familiar. One familiar tradition for many over the summer months is to go on vacation. So for RBCM at Home in the months of July and August, we will be virtually traveling to museums and cultural organizations across the province and going on a road trip together, so buckle up. We started in the Caribou Mountains of BC's central interior with a visit to Barkerville Historic Town and Park. And from there we headed southwest to the place where mountains, rivers, and people meet in Whistler at the Squamish-Lillooet Cultural Center. Our third stop was in the southern interior near Castlegar at the Doukhobor Discovery Center. Burnaby in the Nikkei National Museum and Cultural Center was our fourth stop, and that was followed by the Jewish Museum and Archives of British Columbia located in Vancouver. If you've missed any of those, you can find recordings of those on our YouTube channel, so please do check them out. Today, we are taking the 17-hour drive northwest of Vancouver, up the highway, past Smithers, finally turning onto Highway 37A, and we're going for about 65 kilometers or so on that highway to arrive in Stewart. And our host today is Shirley Rosichuk from the Stewart Museum. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Kim. Hi, everyone. Just glad to be here with you today. It's great to bring our little piece of the remote north to your outside world.
So tell us a little bit about the history of Stuart.
All right, so first of all, we're gonna start our little PowerPoint and I'll show you on a map just where we're located.
Oh, that's cool.
And there we go, just to the next one. Whoop, there we go. You'll see on the right-hand side a little bit of a map showing where we are from Vancouver. We are on the west coast, located at the head of the Portland Canal in remote northern BC. And despite its naming, the canal was actually a natural fjord, and it is the fourth largest fjord in the world, and it's approximately 90 miles in length. The canal was named in 1793 by Captain Vancouver when he was on a survey expedition on the north coast here, and named it after the Duke of Portland. Stewart is also known for its port area, and it is Canada's most northerly ice-free port. And we are surrounded by the BC coastal mountains and huge ice fields and glaciers. And I just wondered if I could, we're gonna flip down to another poster. This is some of Stewart in the past and in the recent up here. And next one. There we go, some of the scenery, our beautiful boardwalk out into the tide flats, the Salmon Glacier and the Bear Glacier. Can you point those out, Anna, for me? I have a young assistant helping me with this wonderful electronic technology today. So the Bear Glacier up onto our left, and down at the right is the Salmon Glacier. I don't know if you would mind if I shared a little excerpt from a book that was written way back when by Lance Potterton, who was one of our very first police officers in the BC police force that came to Stewart. And this is his vision of how and when he came to Stewart. The mountains were steep-sided with ice-eroded valleys, some of which contained living glaciers. They were covered with lush green timber, reaching high towards the heavy blanket of snow, which covered the high peaks that gave birth to scores of milk-white streams and waterfalls. Quite a number of graceful seagulls followed our ship, anticipating being fed from the ship's galley. Truly, this was part of beautiful British Columbia, now being glorified by the sun as it came over the snow-white peaks to illuminate Stewart and British Columbia on one side of the canal and Alaska on the other. So it is still just as breathtaking as it was way back in July 1st, 1926 when he arrived. And I truly enjoy every bit of Stuart every day. I really appreciate the nature that surrounds us. All right, we'll just pass to the next one.
Shirley, when did you first arrive in Stuart?
I came to Stuart roughly 16 years ago on a search for a mountain retreat. And coming from Alberta, this is totally not flat land at all. So I had an immediate connection to the town of Stuart, and over the next year, I acquired property here, and I do live most of my time here in Stuart, and I share myself back in Alberta with family and grandchildren.
Well, it does look beautiful. I can see the appeal.
It is amazing. All right. So we'll just give you a little bit of the history of Stuart. It came to being roughly about 1898, believe it or not, through a man named Burgess, who was a con man. He circulated a story that he had discovered a placer field at the head of the Portland Canal, and he sold passage on a ship called the Discovery to 68 eager prospectors. A few days after they landed, though, he was promising to lead the men up to the gold fields, but he slipped away in the night on a small boat and was never heard from again. So those men, very disheartened because they had felt they'd come here to get their dream of getting rich with gold nuggets, only to find that once they got into the hills, the only gold nuggets were actually buried in veins in the rock, solid rock. So this is not a placer mining area where you would find big nuggets in the water. It is strictly a hard rock mining where you need to really have a little bit of prospecting in your blood and learn to read all the signs and how to get to it. So one man, DJ Rainey, who was one of the early prospectors on that journey, came back the next year, and he built the first permanent cabin in the area and successfully staked claims. And then around 1902, the Stewart Brothers arrived. You can see this picture on the top left. And I'll just get you to do the pointer. This one here, that was the 2-mile wooden road that joined Stuart to Hyder, BC, which was a small town built on stilts over the water. And then again, we joined over to Hyder, Alaska, which was, a lot of it was also built over the water on stilts. Most of the people had staked all the land and claims around the rivers, so building was on the water to start with. This is a picture of modern day Hyder, just at the border. All right, look for the next photo. Okay, so actually we'll flip back there. We're just new to all of this, sorry guys. There we go. So in 1910, several large ore deposits had been discovered and the town was booming. Around that time, we also had Sir Donald Mann, who entered the scene to build a dream railway that would connect Stuart to the Peace River country in Alberta. And prior to the First World War, with the 10,000 people that were populated it, he had completed 16 miles of rail, and the impressive Empress Hotel was also built and was meant to be the railhead hotel. Unfortunately, that First World War hit in 1914, and we went from a boom town to virtually bust and very nearly a ghost town overnight. All right. The town never really revived its population to 10,000, and through the years, it just floated as typical to mining towns, up, down, up, down. 1965 to 84, our next kind of big boom was about 2,000 people that resided in the town site during the Grand Duke mining era. Once the price of copper had dropped, though, in 84, the mine closed and the town population plummeted again, and we sit roughly about 400 permanent residents today. One thing you do have to remember about Stuart, though, until 1972, we virtually had no road access, and the only way in and out of Stuart was on the Marine Highway. So considering that the difficulty of access to this area, it did very, very well for its population. All right. So any other questions, Kim? How are we doing?
Oh, it's great. So I'm seeing 3 pictures on this slide. I think they're all slightly different buildings. It looks like the building in the bottom left is your museum. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the photo in the top corner?
The top corner is actually the original building, same one as on the bottom left. Just had a little bit more dress up on it. And the building to the right, the old fire hall, that was our very first museum in Stuart. The museum is owned and operated by the Stuart Historical Society, and that was founded in 1975 by Reverend Tom Armstrong. And the museum's doors opened in 1976. Now, we stayed at that location in the old fire hall. It had been built about 1910 and had been also the town hall at one time, and then it was turned into the fire hall later on. Addition was added on, you can see in the back area there, Anna, if you'll just point it out, to house the collection shortly after the opening in 1976. Time and weather, however, took its toll on the building and caused a lot of structural damage. So in the fall of 2012, the museum moved into the historic BC government or courthouse building.
And that's where you are today. It looks like Shirley. There we go. Just briefly, we can remind folks you are in a remote area, so our Wi-Fi connection, our internet connection may come and go a little bit. So okay. The building in the bottom left, that's where you currently are.
That is our current home, and that was previously a government building, BC government courthouse. It does not belong to the government any longer. It belongs to the District of Stuart, but we still share it with the provincial courts, Service BC, and the Ministry of Transportation Snow Avalanche Program. We occupy both floors, upper and lower. So it's fun to actually still be in a working, real building, and people that come to visit us do get to glimpse into the courtroom to see what it looks like.
Nice.
All right, our main exhibits is basically the mining room, which really, really encompasses the heart and soul of Stuart. We are still a mining community. It still makes everything turn around in the world of things. Our ports are busy shipping ore, shipping logs, and bringing in machinery and equipment for mining companies, as well as right now the pipe that's coming through for the Kitimat pipeline hits our ports and is trucked out from here. So this room showcases a lot of the old mines. It started the Red Cliff, Premier, Big Missouri, Dunwell, Porter, Idaho, Silverado. Those really, really made the town boom in the early years. And everyone really marvels at our payroll records from 1919, believe it or not, dating back to the Premier mine. So we use this book to actually research to see, for people that are looking for genealogy records, it helps us to locate some of those folks to know whether they actually lived in Stuart or if they were part of the town of Premier that was on the mountain. 450 people lived up there year round. And the mine was booming, lots and lots of gold. Such beautiful handwriting and meticulous calculations in this book. I wish we could all write like this now, but computers have taken over. All right, we'll just go back to that last screen. And we also had a really neat little room in this that we created our own little mine tunnel, especially for the kids to enjoy. It was the old vault that was used by the government agent, and we turned it into a tunnel. We put in the big arches at the back and put in a drill and some of the old blasting material. So it's really quite cool for people to go through. Great. The other thing that we feature, and I'm not sure if we have that on a slide, Anna, can we go back to, is the Grand Duke Mine, if you could point up there. So the Grand Duke Mine operated from 1965 to 84. And as I said, the price of copper dropped terribly badly in 1984, so to the point where they really could not make the mine a working entity. But one thing that's remembered and is relevant in everyone's mind still is during the construction phase in 1965, February 18th actually, we had 2 camps drilling from both ends of the mine tunnel, which was 11 miles in length, believe it or not, and met exactly in the middle of that. And we had some unusual weather in February 1965, several weeks of warm weather, then a very fast freeze, which glassed up the side of the mountain. And then within very few days, we had 16 feet of snow. Of course, that's a disaster for avalanche. And indeed, the avalanche came down, buried the camp at the backside in the Leduc area, and killed 26 men. So we have a monument both in our park in town dedicated to those men, plus an extensive history on each one of them that we put together for the mining room. So lots and lots of things have happened up here that pique everyone's interest.
And what was the year of that again, Shirley?
That was February 18th, 1965.
65.
It was a massive, massive rescue, and the weather just really inhibited every which way to getting in to rescue the men. All right, so we'll move on a little bit to our upper floor. It has displays throughout the hallways in regards to transportation and industry, as well as a small wildlife display that we're quite proud of for our little community. Well, one of our catchphrases is when steel met keel, horses wore snowshoes, and it is very well represented. Of course, Donald Mann's Railway on the left down the bottom went right out into deep water and definitely met the keel of many shipping vessels in the early years. And then our horses, to get supplies and equipment up the mountains to the remote mines and camps, they actually devised snowshoes to put on the horses' feet to give them traction and to keep them up on the heavy loads of snow. So really one of our most interesting little displays in the museum for most people.
I'm surprised. I'm sure lots of people are surprised by that.
If you Google around on the internet, I believe there is a site dedicated to snowshoes for horses, and Stewart is featured in it.
Oh, great.
So some interesting read. Okay, we'll move on to the next slide. So this is, we have 3 small collection rooms. One we call Heart of the Home, just up on the left. Lots of stoves and dishes and things that would have been used in the kitchen. The heart of the home was where the heat was. That's where most everyone met and gathered at the end of the day, was for a good meal and some conversation with family and friends. Our second room is dedicated to the early businesses that were in town. Both of these slides represent some of the hotels, some of the stores, the telegraph office, the post office, lots and lots of history in that little room packed away. And then we have personal collections, the bottom right, both pictures. We had some huge donations from Mrs. Bennett, who lived here and was one of the very early citizens of the town. And some of her very personal stuff is here. Her clothing, her shoes, her mantilla for her hair. Great, great presentation for that. We also have a quilt in the back corner that we had assessed, and it appears to have dated back to 1898, and the material in it is real velvet, and they do not make real velvet anymore. So neat collection to view. All right, we'll move on to the next one. This is also on display in the personal collection rooms. Now, Stuart, we have great weather phenomena. We have so much snow. We have tons of avalanches. We have floods, major disasters all the time. Maybe not so much anymore because we're well looked after by our avalanche crews. But we've lost 2 cemeteries. Our first one in 1923 was washed away by the Bear River. It was just outside of town, across the bridge on the left-hand side. And the Bear River flooded, washed it totally away. There's not one remnant of that cemetery left. Our second cemetery was located as well across the Bear River Bridge, but against the mountain wall. And about 1968, we had another disaster, a landslide, which totally covered the second cemetery. So there's about 30 feet of debris on top of that, and no one will ever be able to be exhumed and replaced in our small cemetery that exists today. Just gonna grab a drink here. We're getting dry from talking. Now, we've spent about 7 years actually researching all of the names that are on the boards. These will be placed at our new cemetery in the next year or so. We're just getting everything prepped for it. But we had a lady named Mary Trace from Calgary, Alberta, who actually donated all of her thousands and thousands of hours of researching and did genealogy on every single person who's listed on these boards. So really a great monument to those that were our early founders of the town.
That is a lovely gift, and also just very wonderful that your society, your historical society, is taking this important step to remember. Those cemeteries being washed away would be a big loss for someone's family and for people doing that kind of research. So
absolutely,
an important job.
So anyone that did have family or friends that lived up here in the early years, we have a really, really good database of genealogy, and we can pretty quickly research to see if we can trace them down. So it's a wonderful resource for that. Okay. All right, so we move on to our little movie room. We're able to show a documentary video on the early history of Stuart called Mountain of Gold. And it is wonderfully done. But along with, in that room, we feature all of the movies that were filmed in part in the area, right from the late 70s right into 2011. And to date, there are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 movies that have been filmed up here. One of the best known films to be made here was Insomnia with Robin Williams, Al Pacino, and Hilary Swank. Great psychological thriller. Have you seen it, Kim?
You know what? I don't think I have, and I like all of those actors, so I must have been sleeping. All
right, so you need to try and get hold of it. It's a great movie, a very different part that Robin Williams plays in it, but I won't spoil the fun for you, so have a look at it. We also showcase in the right-hand side here this wonderful hazmat suit and artifacts from the crash of a B-36 intercontinental bomber. That plane crashed 40 miles southeast of Meziadin Junction, which is about 45 minutes east of the town of Stewart in 1950. And the plane actually was lost for roughly 4 years and wasn't located until 54. Are you familiar with the term broken arrow?
Broken arrow? No, I'm not.
All right, so that was basically a secret US military code that indicated that they had lost a nuclear weapon.
Oh.
Now, that B-36 bomber did have a nuclear weapon on board. They were on a training mission from Texas to Fairbanks, Alaska, and on their return voyage, they got into trouble off the West Coast, and they were instructed to parachute most of the crew off on the island of Princess Royal and take the plane further west over the ocean, deposit their payload, and ditch the plane. From that point, things got a little bit murky. 11 of the military men were rescued, but the rest were lost in action. And the plane itself was discovered by some surveyors in 1954, roughly, going across Mount Collegiate for a survey mission for a mining company. The broken arrow is still missing in action today. It's never been found. And if you're looking for a great documentary book, The Lost Nuke is wonderful. It was written by Dirk Scepter, who led the US military in to do the first cleanup on that site. And hence we were gifted some of the relics from that area. Okay.
Amazing. I had no idea. We've had glaciers, avalanches, movie stars, nukes.
Absolutely. And The Lost Nuke, you'll see the book there in our little gift shop. We have a great little gift shop, but most of our material that we carry is all relevant to the area, including the wolves and the bears that are frequent our area. Wonderful place to go looking for flora and fauna and mushrooms. Just awesome, awesome things to get for gifts. Well educational. So we can't forget that little one. All right. And we'll go down to our last slide. Now, I think you asked me what was my favorite artifact.
Yeah, I was curious of all of these things, if you have something that's your favorite.
Oh, well, I have to say I don't have one particular one, but I do really, really love this little collection of earlier pioneers were very much recyclers and use what you had. So on the top left here, we have a pair of skis, and without bindings, they actually used old rubber tires to make the bindings for their boots. And bottom left, they created a scoop for shoveling oats for the horses. Top left, can you guess what that is, Kim?
Well, I can actually. I've got to guess. Let's see if anyone in the chat window has a guess. And but I think I know what it is.
All righty.
I'm going to guess that is a berry picker.
Exactly so. So I picked with a very modern berry picker today, but this was definitely wonderful. It looks to me like it was made from a coffee can and nails. It's pretty cool. The bottom one here, we have a shovel that came from one of our locals, and rather than going out and buying a shovel handle, they just used a limb of a strong tree and carved it out, and you can see all the wobbles and irregularities in the handle, and that is why it just was a tree limb that was used. So my other one is, this is called a bug light, and it was made way back, probably circa 1940, out of a Pacific milk can. And they would have used this in underground mining. They would have had a candle on it. You can see that the side that they cut out, they used it on the back side of the can as a reflector for the light from the candle. And then the hand, and then the handle was just a cut from another piece of tin and attached to it. Little breathing holes along the bottom, and looks like probably a beer bottle cap to hold the candle in.
Very clever.
Yeah. So there we go. Those are some of my favorite little artifacts in the museum. And we'll flip to that last one. And there you go. So museums, to me, truly bring the past to life. And the Stewart Museum does a wonderful job of that. And we love to invite people to come and hear more echoes from our past. So anytime you're up our way, please drop by.
Thank you, Shirley. And Anna, we'll get you to stop sharing the screen. We'll share that email and phone numbers in the chat window as well if people need to copy that down and have a look. You know, with COVID, we've been doing a lot less able to travel and to go see things. And as I was getting ready for our talk today, and I was looking up Stuart and I was reading about the area and looking at the map, I actually had some of those same nice feelings of excitement when we are planning a holiday. And I really want to thank you for giving me the chance to anticipate this visit and look forward to coming and seeing you and then sharing so many great things. Shirley, I know it's probably not the typical time up in Stuart, and we hope that folks are doing well and taking care of each other. I wanted to ask you if there's anything that's come maybe positive. I see you're at the museum, so is the museum open right now if people were able to come and visit?
The museum is open, and actually, as I reflect back, COVID has been a bit of a blessing and a curse. A blessing in the way that we're not so busy that we can't get at tasks that we've been trying to do for years now. Also, I feel that it's given us an opportunity to spend more time with our guests. We actually book 2-hour slots because it does take about 1 hour and 45 minutes to do the whole museum experience. We partly, where there's a room available, we're actually in the room giving commentary, and then they get to explore the rest of the smaller areas on their own. We allow about, our maximum is 6 people in the building. And if we get extremely busy, then we have to keep 6 people on the upper floor and 6 people on the lower floor, and they're not allowed to cross each other's paths. But so far to date, we've managed it pretty well. So yeah. I actually love it. They're spending more time in the gift shop. They're able to pick up more reading material and learn so much more about Stuart. So it hasn't been a total loss, other than going from 2,600 people and guests last year to so far maybe about 250. It's a nice pace, actually.
Well, and for a small staff that's there, I know you're with Anna today. Do you have other folks who are in the building helping you out?
I usually have a volunteer or 2 that come in on a busy day to help us out, or if we're doing something like the program today where we need somebody to just kind of guard the door. And we're very grateful for our volunteers. They're very knowledgeable. They've lived here a long time. We also do, on a normal year, we would do a Mother's Day tea. Now, for a small community of 400, our typical participation in that is about 80-some attendants. So it's great. It's a wonderful event, and it's one of our major fundraisers for the early part of the year when we don't have the tourism. Mm-hmm. Our second event is a Father's Day barbecue and garage sale, and we haven't been able to host that one this year either. So we've kind of lost out on those parts, and that's kind of been the down part of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. But we will carry on, for sure. Wonderful.
It sounds like you are a great part of the community and doing such good work up there. Thank you, Shirley, for taking time today. And, you know, another thing you're experimenting with is doing these digital visits. So maybe that's something I'll be able to do more of.
Yes, this has been a great experience, Kim, and I really appreciate having been included in your program this year.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining us. A special thank you to the Dorchester retirement community in Kelowna. We heard that you're watching us and really appreciate that you're there. I hope you enjoyed your themed lunch today. I'd like to hear more about that and what you did. And also for folks who are watching, if there are other museums or communities around BC you'd like us to visit, please let us know. You can use the chat window here, or if you're on Facebook, let us know what places you'd like us to check out next. We'd love to hear from you. If you joined us late or you missed something and you want to go back, this has been recorded and you will find it on the Royal BC Museum's website, YouTube channel. The museum has reopened and we are ready to welcome you back. Like Stewart, we do have limits on our visitors at a time, so you can find out more about our time tickets and which exhibits are available, again, by visiting our website. We will be continuing our at-home kids and outside for the foreseeable futures. So please join us again. And in the meantime, take care of yourselves and continue to take care of one another. Bye-bye, everyone.